Hey y'all, this is Lotus Blossom Dolls here. Welcome back to my channel. So today we're going to do another update on the dollhouse for my American Girl / Pleasant Company dolls. The first thing you're going to notice is that the bedrooms that were on the bottom floor last time have now moved up to the top floor. And I also moved around where some of the furniture is. So the rug on the top was in Samantha's room, now it's on the top floor. The curtains have been made, I've added lights, I've added rugs to every floor. I got a new side table for Molly. I got her a new lamp, but we're gonna start on the bottom floor. So originally I was gonna make this Kirsten's room and add in the Queen's Treasures furnitures when they got here. As you can tell, they have come in. I have very mixed feelings about them, but we're going to get a little bit more into depth with that. So the sink right here is solid wood. The fixtures are wood. If you've seen my most recent video, this Kirsten is one of the Kirstens I fixed up. I love the little metal sifter. I love the little metal whisk. I don't know why some things are made of metal and others are not. Like, I don't know why the faucet isn't metal, but the accessories are. That's very weird to me. A lot of this very much felt a lot more playline than I think I realized it was going to feel. It feels kind of like Melissa and Doug toys. The pies were really cute. They came with a little server, and they came with 2 displays, and the pies themselves are on a metal tin, which they can come out of. And the individual pieces are decorated and can come out. I don't have any qualms with the pies. They're really cute. I like them a lot. And I like the display they come with as well. I believe this pie is supposed to be the apple pie, and then the other pie that I'm about to pull down is supposed to be the pecan pie. They're both really cute. I've got a little rolling pin. It came with a little cutting board. I bought as many of the accessory sets as I could because the Queen's Treasures is having a hard time with the tariffs getting their stuff imported, and I was worried it wasn't going to exist anymore, so I went a little crazy and bought a lot of stuff. And all the stuff I added for the kitchen and for the family room, the furniture is a lot bulkier than I thought it was going to be. It's not a bad thing, it just meant there wasn't enough room for Kirsten's bed the way I originally had kind of thought there was going to be. There are little metal clasps, but this is a solid wood refrigerator, and I put the food that I did have in here. It didn't come with a block of ice for the icebox, which I thought was odd. So that cabinet's just empty. I might make a piece of ice at some point. But there's milk, there's eggs, there's butter. The eggs are really cute. The milk and the butter and the eggs are all just wooden as well. And then we've got the little stove that's supposed to look like a cast iron stove. And I ordered the pots and pans. It didn't come with the flat pan that it was supposed to come with, but they were sold out, so I had no hope that they were going to be able to replace it. The cookies have like little bits of tape or like glue stuff stuck on the back of them, and they make them sticky, which is nice because that means I can like play with them and you can stick them to the spatula. So I just leave that out because I like that little touch. And then in here there's a little fire, and there's a little roasting pan and a little turkey. The fire looks really good. I think that's really cute, and I like that that's in there. The wooden pan is an odd choice, especially with how much of the stuff they have chosen to make out of metal. But the little turkey is pretty cute. They painted it well. So I don't know. You can tell that I also bought a second rug for down here. So when I decided to move this furniture to the bottom floor, the rug didn't take up the whole space anymore. So I folded it in half. And I bought a second one. The tea kettle is really cute, but I don't know why it's got such a small hole in the inside. They did that with the cups as well, which I think kind of hurts their play value, because this pan looks normal on the inside, but the tea kettle doesn't. I also left out a little crate of decorations and props from my old dollhouse. So I've got Kit's camera, and I have her newspaper. I love how cute this camera is. Also, I apologize if my voice is kind of going in and out. I was playing with some puppies and kitties yesterday, and so my voice is a little scratchier than normal, but this camera is a little Kodak camera. It opens with a little piece of metal on top popping up, and then it slides out like the old school cameras used to do. It's quite difficult to do this one-handed, but it is so cute. I love most of Kit's accessories. I'm actually on the hunt right now for her desk and her little rolling chair, swivel chair, because I have her typewriter and I just think it'd be so cute to put all those pieces together. But I love this camera. I love the case that it comes with. And it's just such a cute prop. I don't know where its permanent home in the dollhouse is going to be yet, but for now it's sitting in a little crate in the kitchen, which I think is cute. I remember having a kitchen stool like this at my grandmother's house when I was a little girl, so I thought the idea of like having a little crate of stuff on the kitchen stool was cute. This is her little newspaper set, and then this is a little doll prop I got for a ball jointed doll, but it was just in with my 18-inch dolls because the 18-inch doll props and the larger ball jointed doll props are the same size. I also found these little press and stick lights at Walmart, and I thought that would be nice to have some lighting inside the dollhouse. Also, on a related note, after buying the stick lights, I actually found some wood vinyl that looks like flooring, so I'm going to cut it into strips and make the floor underneath the carpet look like wood floor. But I found that after I'd already recorded this video, so that will be on the next update. So I have Molly's table. I made these curtains, and I did end up finding the other parts of her table set, so I added the tablecloth and the birthday cake, which I had last time. This Kirsten was also last time from my last video. These little dishes I thought were going to be ceramic, but they are also wood with like a splattered paint texture. I ordered the little jars of cookies. It's quite difficult to open one hand again, but the little cookies are real. They can come out. You can play with them. They're really, really cute. Just watching me struggle. And this chair, same thing as the little pipe tobacco prop. This was a BJD prop. I do like the little glass jars with the little metal lids. Like, it seems so random what they chose to make out of metal and what they didn't choose to make out of metal. I like that it says mason jar on the front as well. Another pet peeve for the wooden dishes is these little cups. They're not drilled out. They're just flat on the inside, and they have little screws on the side of them. And I love the idea, and I think from a distance they look really good, but I think up close, like, the lack of detail is hurting them. I did have some extra little glass jars. I did throw them in that drawer. That drawer, for some reason, is way stickier than the others, and it's super hard to pull, and I don't know why. And then a lot of the props came in these little bags, so I saved the bags because I thought they were cute. I also ordered the flour and sugar bags as little accessories. I think these are darling. They really fit the time period. They are just stuffed. They're like a stuffed animal. They're just soft. They're really cute, though. On the top, the lunch set came with this little red bag and some like paper hay. So I just stuffed the little bag with the hay. I thought it was cute. On this floor, I think you can see it a little bit better, but I had a little chest that I decorated. I spray painted it white, and then these curtains I've been working on for weeks, which is what's taken this video so long, is I wanted to finish making these curtains. I will insert a little tutorial for that into this video, I believe. This is Kit's typewriter. If you press it, you can hear all the little buttons making noise. I bought these two little rugs. They're so soft. Like, oh my gosh, they're so soft. They're supposed to be front door mats that are washable, and they're so perfect. So I bought two, and I just folded them in half so that I could have them be a continuous pattern between the two halves of the room. I did recently acquire the rest of this bedroom set for Molly, and fiance actually fixed the light so it functions again, which was so sweet of him. I think it needs batteries again. It's getting kind of dim, but it does work now, which is so exciting. On the last Dollhouse tour, this big gold mirror was also in Samantha's room. It got moved to Molly's room for now. This is Kit's notebook and reporting set, and it comes with a little quill pen And this little notebook is like leather. It's so nice. And then I recently went on a road trip and picked up this other Molly from the Be Forever line, because that was one of the Mollies I didn't have. And I found her locally on Facebook Marketplace for a really good price. And she's so cute. And so she's been currently vibing in the dollhouse with my 90s Molly that fiance got me at a doll show. But I love how the curtains came out. I really wanted them to be, to feel like they were multiple panels and that they opened on the inside. And then I added like a little piece of frilly trim to the top of them. But I can't stop petting the rug. It's so soft. And then on the top floor, I ended up making this the twins' room. I've added a lot more props to this, and I've rearranged some stuff. I hung the little butterflies to the ceiling. I added curtains. I found some more of the accessories, like the little books and the little sunglasses. I've put Courtney's scrunchies in the drawer. I thought I had more stuff in the drawers, but I didn't. Thank you to a commenter on one of my last videos. This bed set is actually Magic Attic, which I didn't know, which is super cool. And I need to look into those dolls a lot more now, because those were, I think, a little before my time. I added a tiny Perplexus, and it's so much fun to play with. Anything that's like sort of more modern that I can put in this bedroom, I have been. I had a big Perplexus in my room as a kid, and so I think that it's a little bit on the cusp of the time period, but is so cute still. It does work though. There's like a little bead in there, and you can actually play the whole game. But another thing I want to work on that I haven't done yet is I really want to... I'm so scared to paint because I love the purple that's in the wall, like on the walls, but it's not gonna be easy to find that exact color. So I do need to do some repaint. Like the walls are starting to bother me, and like the gaps in the wood and stuff are starting to bother me, but I don't know what to do about it. I hung up this little net, which was like hanging up a toy net like this was really common in the 90s. And I put in some Cabbage Patch Kids. I put in a little Native American doll. I put in some Care Bears, but I realized I should have hung it on the inside of the cover of the edge of the house, and I'm not sure I love it anyway, so I haven't decided if I want to put holes on the inside of the house yet or not to fix it. But yeah, this is the dollhouse as it is right now. I will include a tutorial for how I made the curtains at the end of this video, so if you want to see how I made those curtains, feel free to stick around and watch that chunk. But yeah, this has been so much fun. I'm sure there will be more updates to the dollhouse. I also have in the works that I want to make a dollhouse for Samantha to put in her room that's her scale, so keep an eye out for that eventually as well. But without further ado, here is the sewing tutorial. In the process of cutting doll curtains, I'm using this fabric, which has like a pretty little pattern on it, if you'll focus. And then this fabric. Alright, so we have all 6 windows worth of fabric cut out at the moment. I might change my mind and add something, but we have this, which is going to be the top piece. We've got 2 side pieces and 2 inside pieces. I'm going to start sewing them all together. It's going to take a while. There's a lot of fabric here. It just took me almost 2 hours to cut all of this out. I haven't decided yet for this top piece if I want to sew a piece of this like polka dot fabric to the bottom of it to make like a little ruffle, but that feels like overwhelming at the moment. I'd rather just find a piece of lace that goes nice with it, but I'm going to have to buy a ton of it if I'm going to do that for this, and I don't have any of that in my scrap for fabric, so at the moment, this is what we're working with, and we're gonna start sewing everything together. Alright, so progress. I wanted to try sewing one off camera to see if my vision even worked. So this is what we have so far. It does need to be ironed in order to drape right, but this is it. I will film sewing one of them, but I do have to make 6, so we're gonna have so much fun. Alright, back to sewing. Alright, so the first thing I do when I'm sewing these curtains is I take the two pieces of fabric and I lay them together, good sides together, and I find the best edge of both of my fabrics and put them together. So one edge of the yellow fabric was already pre-hemmed and the white fabric doesn't fray, so I put the best cut edges of those together. I fix my sewing machine, which is like basically like keeping it from unraveling on one side. I hold them together and then I just sew straight. Because these are just a simple straight seam, I wish I had a serger, but I don't. I don't really pin these because I don't feel like it's necessary. And it also is hard with the white mesh fabric because it is really stretchy, so if I pin them together I find it like bunches weird, so I just kind of let the white fabric kind of go to town. You'll notice I did cut these wrong though, so I did have to cut the extra fabric off the white panels. It was too long. And then I hem the other side, which is the yellow side. So there's a seam in the middle and then there's a hem on the other side that's just the yellow side. But to make this curtain set, I did just measure the window, and each of these panels is almost exactly the size of the window with a little bit of extra length to account for seam allowances. So each one of these 4 panels could completely cover this window in my dollhouse, but I wanted it to look really gathered and I wanted it to feel like a multi-panel curtain. But I wasn't worried about it being functional because I'm never going to fully close the curtains to keep the light out. So I just sewed the inside layer and the outside layer together to help reduce bulk with the scale of the dollhouse. I wasn't 100% sure how I was going to do this when I started, which is why I didn't talk about it more at the beginning, but here you can see this panel, it's done. I'm not worried about hemming the top of it either because it's going to be sewn on the inside of the top decorative piece. So now I'm doing the next panel. Exactly the same thing, except I'm going to make sure that I sew the other side together so that the two pieces of white mesh are both on the inside. So I have to be a little bit more careful on the second panel to make sure that I'm sewing it together that way. And I'm lining up the good sides of my fabric together so that when I fold it out, the seam is on the back, the seam is on the ugly side. And yeah, so all these panels are just my measurement for the window plus a little bit of length. I think there's about an inch on either side to account for any sort of error in my own sewing and to account for seam allowances. I also added a little bit of extra length because I knew I was going to have a little bit of needed length to put the curtain rod on the top of the curtain as well. I did just kind of ad-lib this. I looked up some ideas and inspiration for sort of windows that I liked and curtains I liked. I didn't find anything that was exactly what I was looking for. But I was thinking like an old kitchen farmhouse window curtain from like the turn of the century. And I thought that sort of vibe would fit with all of my rooms and that would be sort of a unifying piece between all the different rooms of my dollhouse. So that's what I was going for when I started this. That's why I included a couple pictures before the sewing tutorial of like some of the ideas that I kind of looked at and some of the curtains I love. I have this like weird thing where I really love curtains. Like I love curtains in my actual apartment as well. I can't wait till I have a house and I can install like actual proper curtain rods to all of my windows. But this part is just the same as the other one, so I folded it over. I'm not too concerned about getting it super close. I am just going to cut the extra fabric off of this to make the seam even smaller because the yellow fabric is fairly transparent as well. So I didn't want the bulk behind it because you could see it, especially with light coming in through the window. So here we are. I'm cutting off the extra threads. I did just cut off all of the extra fabric off screen, but you can see the two white sheer pieces are in the middle and they go together. Now we're going to start on the really long upper piece. This is the full length of all 4 panels plus a little bit of extra on either side, and I did cut a slope into the middle of it to give it sort of a little bit of decorative flair. I am going to hem the inside slope of it first. If this was a more dramatic, like, sort of circle or like curve, I would definitely have pinned this before I did it. However, this was such a gentle curve that I didn't really need to. I just kept holding the seam and letting the machine sort of do the work for me. When I got to the middle and I had to change directions, that was kind of the only spot where I really slowed down on this hem and like took a little bit more time. But just like the side panels, I did just cut off the extra fabric on the inside of the seam. I could have folded it over on itself to like encapsulate the seam, but I was worried it was going to be too thick, and I was really more concerned with it draping. I don't need the seams to be functionally, they're not coming on and off a doll. It's not like it's going to be worn. They're not going to be handled a tremendous amount. It's more that I just didn't want the bulk for how it was going to drape and lay on the fabric for the house itself. So here's where the direction sort of switches in the middle, and then you can see me pushing the seam back to get it back to the same width as it was on the other side, but now we're angling down, so I had to adjust that a little bit. I did find it was easier to do this step and hem the sides of this panel before I sewed the two longer pieces to this big piece on the top. I did like the idea of adding a piece of lace, and I did actually go to Michael's and find some lace for this project, and I laid it out with it, and I didn't have enough. I bought 6 yards, and I needed another 6 yards to be able to keep doing it. And I didn't think it added enough to the design to be worth me going back and getting more, so I just ended up not using it. So I do have 6 yards of lace that I will eventually use on another project, because I didn't end up using it on this one. Because I did sew this curve in, there is a little bit of extra fabric on the corners. I did just cut that off, and then I folded the corner up and in so that it wouldn't hang out of the edge. You could pin this, especially if you don't have as much experience sewing. I just used the foot of the machine to hold down that little fold and just immediately sewed that fold in. I thought that was easier, and I did that on all of the curtains. So this was the last one that I made. So these were the like sort of mismatch pieces of all the curtain panels that I ended up making. I wasn't too concerned about it because the upper floor windows are shorter than the lower floor windows. So if two of these panels were a little bit shorter than the other ones, it didn't really affect anything because they were going to go on the shorter windows anyway on the upper floor. I did have to be aware of, so now I'm sewing the sides down, I did have to be aware of how big of a channel I ended up sewing for the curtain rod that I had made, because the curtain rods were not all uniform sized, and my fiance had to cut 2 of the curtain rods down to fit on the upper floor. So when I was sewing the channels for the other curtains, I was measuring with the curtain rod how much space I needed to leave, but this was my last curtain, so I didn't end up doing that because I had a general idea of how much space I needed to leave to get the curtain rod in there comfortably. So right now I have this good side down, and then I'm gonna put good side down with the pretty edge on the bottom, which is this way, so that this piece is in the middle. I'm not super precise with this. It doesn't really need to be. I'm just making curtains. They're gonna get gathered. They're gonna be ironed. It doesn't need to be like super precise or anything. But what my goal is to get this overlapping a little bit, like so. I went through and I trimmed all my seams. This fabric like shreds really bad, so I really should use a serger, but I don't have one, and I don't want the bulk because these are going to be curtains, so I didn't like fold the edges over a bunch because I don't want the bulk added to the fabric. So I just cut the seams down really close because it's not going to be taken on or off of a doll a bunch, so it doesn't really matter. I add like maybe an inch of overlap in the middle, and then it's maybe an inch up from the middle. I did cut this bottom part on a curve so that it would look like a curtain. I did just kind of wing this as I went, so there isn't like a rhyme or reason to it. I did measure the window to figure out how much length I needed and how much width I needed. Each of these panels is just shy of being the entire window. So it's a little bit less than 4 times the window length, and then I gather it up to being the length of just the window. So that's how I have it set up currently. This fabric I could sew a hem on for like aesthetic reasons, but it doesn't shred, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't need it like practically. But this did. So I kept the edging on the bottom from the actual fabric itself, from the big flat piece of fabric, so that I wouldn't have to sew as many seams. So some of them have a seam on the bottom and some of them don't because they don't need it. And then I'm just gonna pin this in the middle on the corners, and then I'm gonna go in between. This is probably the only step that I actually have to pin because none of the rest of this is precise. It doesn't really need to be. These are the other curtains all done. There's 5 of them here. You'll notice that one of them is shorter than the other. This one is also shorter than the others. The 2 upper windows on the dollhouse are shorter, so those are going to be the ones for the upper room of the dollhouse. But yeah, so we're gonna pin this and I'll be right back. Alright, so here they are all pinned together. My goal when making these curtains was to make something that looked sort of like an old-timey kitchen curtain. So the panel is yellow and then the inside is sheer. I was going for like the aesthetic of having an underlayer of curtain and an overlayer of curtain, but I don't need them to actually be functional for this dollhouse, so I just sewed the panels together for ease of my own use. And I wanted something that felt timeless, that could go in all of the bedrooms, even the ones that are different color and different time periods, so that it would help the house feel cohesive, but then the curtains would feel like they also belonged in all the different rooms. So what I did was I designed it to have like a channel in the middle of the top, so that that's where the rod goes through, and then the top of this will gather and look like a ruffle, and then the bottom will hang down and be kind of like at a longer on either end, so it will look more like a decorative curtain. I did buy some lace to use on this project, but I didn't buy enough of it. I bought 6 yards and I needed 12 yards. And when I went back to buy more lace, I didn't have another 6 yards. So I did not end up adding any lace to this project, even though I did kind of want to. But I don't think it's inherently necessary. I just think that the windows definitely need some sort of covering. I also used some little dowel rods as curtain rods, and I just painted the ends white because you're not going to see the middle, so it didn't really matter to me. And then 2 of them are shorter than the others. The 2 that are shorter are going to go in the upper windows because the upper floor has like the angled ceiling, so they needed to be a little bit shorter to fit up here. But yeah, I did test them in the windows. They look super cute. I am going to iron them before I put them back into the dollhouse. So I'm going to finish sewing the last bit of this one, which should take me like 2 minutes. And then I'm going to pull out my iron and I'm going to iron all of them. You don't inherently have to iron them if you want to do a project like this yourself, but this cotton has a little bit of body to it, not a lot, but a little bit, and it has enough body to it that it doesn't like to drape gathered. Like the bottom like kind of flares out more than the top does, and so for my own peace of mind, I am going to iron it because I think it'll hang better. But it's not like it has to be ironed. I just think it'll look better. I'm also not really worried about the overhang being even, because once I start on this side, I have noticed that this fabric, because it's so stretchy, by the time I get to this side, it'll tend to be a little bit longer, so I'm not like worried about it being perfectly in the middle, because they tend to kind of even themselves out when I'm sewing them. So yeah, we're gonna sew this together and I'll show you that, and then we'll be done with this curtain. So my goal when sewing this first part of the channel is twofold. So the first thing I'm doing is hemming the edge, but I'm also creating the bottom part of what's going to become the channel for the curtain rod. So I'm trying to keep this as close to the edge of this fold of fabric as possible. And I'm also trying to make sure that I keep the panel inside of the channel so that it's also being like sewn down to this upper piece as well. I am kind of pulling it more taut than I have it pinned, and I'm also making sure that my seams are folded the direction that I want to iron them in. So for the middle seam, I want it to fold towards the outside of the curtain, so I'm holding it down as I'm sewing it so that it sews down that direction, so that when I do go to iron it, it's facing the right way. It is a little bit easier to do that if you if you pre-iron your curtains before you do this step. I definitely would recommend ironing your seams when doing like sewing for clothing. I do that a lot. Sometimes I'll even use like a hair iron to like do like a quick little version of ironing seams down on doll clothes from my sewing machine area without having to get up and go to the actual big ironing board. But I knew I was going to be doing a lot of ironing on all of these, so I wasn't super concerned about it when I was doing it here. And I am just trying to keep this straight. I'm trying to keep the top part even, and I'm about to get to that next seam, and I'm holding it down to make sure that I have it where I want it. I'm also taking the pins out kind of early and using my hands to make sure everything is where it's supposed to be. As I said, I found as I was doing this that stretchy fabric was really affecting things like seams. So I was sort of trying to work with the fabric rather than working against it. And then I was hitting my little fix button to finish off all of my seams on the beginning and on the end. It just does the forward and backward for you to lock your seam in. It's a really nice feature on this sewing machine. I'm quite happy about it. So that's the first part of the channel. That's the only time I had to use pins when I was sewing this. I did also cut down the extra bulk on the bottom of that so it wouldn't be so visible. As you can see with the like light shining behind it, you can see it a little more. And then I sew the upper part of the channel. I think it was like 3/4 of an inch to make the channel. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with this. This part's a lot easier. It's just a big, quick, straight line stitch through. If you have the curtain panels up high enough, sometimes you'll also catch them with this layer. That's fine. It doesn't really hurt anything. It just makes it a little more awkward when you're putting the curtain rod through the first time, because sometimes you catch the fabric on the inside a little bit. There definitely are better ways to do this and like more proper ways to do this, but I've always just been sort of loosey-goosey with my sewing. I learned a lot on my own when I was growing up, and I just kind of get creative with it. I'm a lot more particular with certain doll clothes than I am with things like this, like bedding, and curtains are usually pretty straightforward. But I thought you might enjoy seeing the process of how I did this, and if you have any desire to do this on your own, hopefully this gives you some inspiration on how to do this for your own dollhouse. Alright, so here's what this looks like gathered on the top on the little rod, but not ironed, so you can see what I mean. So like this is draping nice, but this isn't. So what I'm gonna do is sort of like give it artificial like gathers or pleats and iron those down so that it hangs more like this. I have the iron heating up now. The trick to getting this to iron well is to just get it really wet. So I have a little spray bottle and I'm going to spray it down before I iron it. So I'm going to do one side and I will show you what it looks like. Alright, so I've done one side and you can see how different that's hanging now. I've just given it a couple little folds and ironed it. So I'm going to do the other side now. But yeah, I'm going to do it to all of them. I'll show you what it looks like for one of them and then I'm going to do it to all of them. So here's the other side done, so you can see what it looks like. I'm quite happy with how that turned out, so now I'm going to do it to the rest of them, and then we'll put them in the dollhouse. So that's it. I included a couple pictures so you can see what it looks like all done. Feel free to go back and watch at the beginning if you want to see it again. But thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I hope you liked the video. I'll catch you on the next one. Bye, YouTube!